Welcome people of the World Wide Web, and welcome to the latest video from Cypher Sigma. As you can see, a bit of change of scenery in the background. We're now in a man cave, so as you can see some of my favourites, Marvel Legends and that. But yes, so in this video we're going to be talking about my top 5 favourite movies of all time. So let's start off with number 5. So Ready Player One. If any of you guys are born up in the 80s like I was, 80s and 90s reference, this is the perfect film for you. Bit of sci-fi, a bit of action adventure, and a lot of other stuff thrown in. Really good acting from the actors and actresses, and also this is based on a book. So if you read the book is very different. Near the end of it, gets quite goes on a different path. A lot of characters have slightly different end stories. But it's really worth a watch. They've also written a second book, and that second book supposedly is going to be turned into a new film, so I do look forward to that. But yes, I've watched this several times, twice at cinema. Absolutely, I love it, film. So yeah, this is number 5. So then we move on to number 4. So this is a classic, White Chicks. If you haven't seen it, or even if you have seen it, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. Terry Crews absolutely kills it. The Weinstein brothers, you know, brilliant filmmakers. This was at a very peak time when they were doing very loads of classic films after Scary Movie and that. And this is just a film where you can sit down at any time of the day, switch your brain off, and just enjoy it. Have a laugh. You know, this isn't meant to offend anybody, which I know nowadays sometimes it can be, but this is an absolutely funny film, and I could watch this all day long. So yep, so that's number 4. Number 3. So going into a little bit of my interest in that, and this is the original Transformers the movie, the animated movie to be precise. Now, soundtrack amazing, animation is absolutely brilliant. Not everybody's into animation like I am, but if you go back and watch it and just see how detailed some of the scenes are for an 80s animation film, far outweighs a lot of the stuff that is now produced. Obviously it's a lot more crisper and there's a lot more tools that can be used today, but back in the day they didn't quite have the skills and tools that they do have, and just it is amazing. The first half an hour with the soundtrack and just constant action is absolutely amazing. I mean, if you're a Transform film, you've seen this. Obviously, out of context, if you've never seen this, I'd advise watching the series beforehand, because obviously there are elements that you miss and don't understand. And unfortunately, I never watched this as a kid, so the whole, spoiler alert, death of Optimus Prime didn't hurt me as much because I saw it as a teenager. But still an amazing film, number 3. So move on to number 2. So this film, Crash. Won an Oscar, I believe, I think 2006, but it is just an amazing film that you don't kind of see coming. This is a remake, I believe. I have not seen the original, so I cannot quote on that. But yeah, it's just one of those films that when you start watching it to when you finish watching it, you have such a different idea of people. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give anything away if you see it, but it also kind of enlightens people to, you know, the mind state of how we are as human beings. Don Cheadle, he's in it, he does kind of open monologue, and it also is about how we live in like glass boxes, and the whole point of us is we crash into other people, and that's basically so we can feel something, so we kind of the interactions and stuff. And I think that is quite a poetic and quite an accurate as humans, because obviously we are very solitary animals, so to speak. You know, when you go home, especially in late life, when you have your own house, you don't intermingle as much with people, but obviously that's how our life is. We want to intermingle, we want to get to know people, we want to build relationships. So yeah, Crash, number 2. So finally, and last but least, my number 1 movie. Now, what you've seen, these are all based on my own opinion, and I have my own views, and you'll find out in a minute why I like the favourite number 1 the most. There's a lot of personal reasons, and I understand that everybody is not the same, so, but let's move swiftly along. So number 1 film is The Crow, early 90s film. Now this, if you haven't seen it, I would recommend if you like action. Oh, almost dropped it. If you like action movies, or if you like anything kind of superhero, or even just it's kind of a love story but has action, has a lot of things. So the reason why I like this is severalfold. First, it is a brilliant film, very well done. Very sad that we lost Brandon Lee, the main actor in this. It was a tragedy. It was, from what I know, down to partly the studios and the prop people, but it is what it is. We can't bring the person back. If you ever get the special editions of Lee's, they do have an interview with Brandon Lee. I do recommend you just get an insight, a little bit of just who he was as a person, which is always nice to know. Here, you know, he wasn't on his earth for a lot of time, but you know, films like this leave his legacy. Not only the fact that he was Bruce Lee's son. Second fold, the person who did this, James O'Barr, he didn't have the best life, unfortunately, and it is from losing his girlfriend at a very young age, which is kind of the whole story of The Crow, and is kind of resonated within the film. And unfortunately, obviously Brandon himself, and there's a few other bits like that that just, it all positive. But it's just one of those movies that it doesn't matter how many times you watch it or how many years have gone by before you watch it. I mean, I've watched this half a dozen, maybe a dozen times since it was out in the early 90s, which is almost 30 years ago since it was done, and it still holds up. It still is a good movie, it still is a good soundtrack, still all works well, and you know, I would highly recommend this, The Crow. So yep, so that's, as you can see, I have a lot of DVDs. I have over 4,000 in total. It's nowhere near the 15,000, it is the world record. Maybe one day, I'm sure my wife would kill me if I had that many DVDs. But yes, when you watch so many Ds like I do, I see myself as a bit of a connoisseur. You always find, I always watch anything. It doesn't matter what it is, chick flick, sci-fi, musical. If you watch all these movies, there are a lot of rubbish out there, but you do get a kind of overall taste of how films are. I do try not to be biased against stuff, but then you watch a load of random films, and sometimes you find out some really, really like hidden gems. So I've got 3 for you. So the first one is a film called K-Pax. So it has Kevin Spacey, which I know regarding the media and everything else that has gone on about him. It's him and Jeff Bridges, and basically he believes he's an alien, and it's the best part of 2 hours, and it basically leads you a story that if you decide he is or he isn't. And I know it doesn't really sound like much, but it is very well acted, and the script and everything else, it's just a nice story to go along, and gets like the mind thinking about stuff. And it'd be interesting, obviously, if you have seen this, what were your thoughts? Please do let me know down in the comments. So that's number 1. So the 2, so a little bit more of a recent run, based off a book again. So this is The Shack. So it's a little bit religious, so I warn you now, I'm not a religious person, I'm an atheist. But when you understand that the person who wrote this book wanted the idea to be to explain kind of God to his children, and I do like his working theory of it and how they produced it into the film and how it comes through. It is actually a very powerful film. A lot of elements involved with this and a lot of things to understand, but it's very well acting. It might be a bit of a tearjerker if you're quite an emotional person, just a warmer, but yeah, I would recommend watching it even if you are religious or not religious. But it's just a very good, well-made film, and it's a lot different to a lot of things that are out there. So I would hope, so that's The Shack. So that's 2 out of the 3 excellent ones I have. And my final one, probably never heard of it, probably might hard to find it, and it's a film called Freeze Frame. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but that person on the front cover is comedian Lee Evans. So this is a person who basically got arrested, and then got let out, and then is very paranoid about his life. And this is what it is. It is not a comedy. There's maybe one line in it that you find funny, but the main focus of this is just he's paranoid, and then he gets, or suspicions are on him that he's done something that he may or may not have done, and then we follow basically him trying to figure out what's happened. Very good film. Lee Evans, if you love his comedian anyway, I do recommend watch this. It's something very different. Don't expect a laugh a minute or anything funny. It is a little bit more serious and a little bit more out there. But it's a very good film. So yeah, so that's my third of my 3 extra watches. So you may watch this, may want to watch it, may not. If you do, please do let me know in the comments. Please let me know what your favourite films are. You know, my films are based on my likes over the 30 odd years I've been watching films since I was a young lad. And they have changed. There have been movies that go in and out of it for other reasons. I watch them at a later date. So it'd be interesting to let me know your opinions. Sigma, hope you have a good week. Sign off for now.